if your calendar was read out to you on Yawm al-Qiyamah, would you be proud of what it says? What good is it if we scale to $10 million per month or $100 million, but then we end up being losers on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah? If your calendar, the way you've designed your calendar, doesn't reflect your values, then that is the very definition of hypocrisy. You're claiming to believe in one thing, but you've literally set your life to live in another completely different way. You already read the title, but yeah, it's a bit of a crazy one, inshallah. The title of today's conversation is, Are you a Munaafiq? Right? Now, this is very, very interesting. And the reason I'm actually talking about this today is because it's a question I asked the client, and he looked at me and he stopped for the next five minutes of the session. I'm okay. And why is this such an important thing? And why is this a question we all need to ask ourselves, guys? Because it's a very important one, right? When we talk about living by design, right, we always talk about the idea of intentionality, being intentional in everything we're doing, having some sort of reasoning and intention behind it. Now, every time I ask clients, why are you building this big business, right? Why are you trying to build this, $100 million empire, etc.? One of the reasons I always get is, well, Fawaz, the truth is I'm trying to do it fi sabilillah, so I can use that funds for Allah, or the project I'm doing is for Allah, etc. So we always hear this, right? Everything we do at the end of the day should be connected to the Akhirah. Why? Because the Akhirah is eternal and this Dunya is temporary. So we should probably connect it to the thing that is what? Eternal. Okay? What good is it if we scale to $10 million per month or $100 million, whatever, and we become the most influential founders in the Ummah, but then we end up being losers on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah? Now, this is really, really important food for thought. And I really want us to think about this and assess in our personal lives, how are we behaving? You see, today isn't about shaming anybody, by the way. This is a mirror, and I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you guys. And it's a moment to actually pause and look at who we really are becoming as we build. This is one of the reasons why I hate busyness. You see, busyness, the problem with when people are busy, they don't come to key realizations, right? We had this conversation earlier, Manzoor, right? Where people have this great issue when it comes to being busy, because when you're busy, you're missing out on a lot of things. This is one of the reasons as well why I started Live by Design, because it's like, you see when someone is busy, there's a lot of things he's just missing out on. There's a lot of data, a lot of things he should be spotting and noticing that naturally he's missing out on because of the chaos and the noise of life. And when life has loads of noise and loads of chaos, like I said, you can't spot these little key things that you should be aware. Like, for example, when your iman is slipping, right? When your Deen, the very reason that you claim to be building, is literally slipping out of your hands, you can't seem to see that. Things like family as well. You can't see when there's issues and when your family relationships are being negatively affected, when your own health is being negatively affected. You can't seem to see these things because you're too busy. And this is what I want us to remember. In the chaos and in the midst of the noise of building this big business, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that's going to serve the ummah, don't forget every now and then to stop and actually look in the mirror and ask yourself, who are you becoming on this path? You see, LBD was never meant to be just about scaling your business. I think I've told you guys that a million times. This is an absolute mirror, okay? It's a mirror, a moment to actually pause and look at, like I said, who you're becoming. The self that will stand in front of Allah on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, and fundamentally you're going to have to answer for. This is a chance to actually reset and make sure that you're building what will actually matter in 100 years from now and in the grave, fundamentally. So let's give clear, simple definitions. Now, guys, this is not a fiqh lecture. I'm sure you can understand, okay? The goal is just to really make you think here. But what is nifaq? At the end of the day, nifaq is what? Hypocrisy. When what you claim and what you are out of alignment. Okay? And the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, when he spoke, talking about the three traits of what? Of a hypocrite, he says what? When he speaks, he lies. When he promises, he breaks his promise. When he's entrusted, he betrays. Right? Anyone can say they're building for Allah. But where the truth of that statement reflects is within your actions. Does that make sense? It reflects how? Within your actions. So when you're claiming, yeah, I'm building this for Allah, but delaying salah and, postponing things and moving things and, not engaging in the acts of ibadah you used to before, these are contradictory. They're absolutely contradictory of each other, okay? Posting about freedom, etc., but being a slave to your phone. Telling everyone and, naming one of your principles in life being family first, right? Always prioritizing your family, but literally neglecting your own spouse and kids because you're building. Right? Saying Deen comes first, but not reading Quran. Sometimes we go days, where you have to be like weeks without touching the Quran. Right? So guys, let me ask you guys all a question. And by the way, I don't want anyone to answer in the chat. I just want you to answer to yourself. If somebody audited how you lived, would they actually conclude that you're Akhirah focused? That you're somebody who's prioritizing his Deen? Would we be able to see from watching your life that you are Deen before business? And I want you to look at your calendar. If your calendar was read out to you of Yawm on Yawm al-Qiyamah, would you be proud of what it says? So what I'm trying to explain to you is, we often say that we are doing this for the ummah, for family, for impact. But if you strip away the branding, much of it is just ego, status, and chasing the next dopamine hit. Business success can literally become the new qibla, our new qibla, if we do not guard it and guard our hearts. Does that make sense? So why am I mentioning this? Because I want us to start reflecting a little bit more. Would you still build this business if it made zero money but pleased Allah? Right? What part of you is actually terrified to lose this business? Is it because you'd go broke or because your identity would shatter? All right? And the way I want you guys to start off is every single, and this is one of the things we do now with all of our company calls with our management, it's actually start with intentionality. You know, sometimes we actually need to remind ourselves of why we're doing it, and it changes a lot of the decisions we end up making. All right? The same way you start your salah with what? The dua and then Fatiha is the same way we start meetings like this. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Of course, Rabbi shrah li sadri until the end. And then, guys, let's remember why we're doing this. We are doing this why? Because we believe in serving our clients. We understand that when we serve our clients, the cell takes care of itself. And our main focus is making sure that Muslims are able to perform at the highest potential. Why do we focus on CEOs? Because CEOs are some of the most influential people in the world. And if you help them, the whole world gets better. Does that make sense? So it's very short. Doesn't even take up to 5 minutes. It's like 2 minutes just reminding. These are especially for key meetings where key decisions are going to take through, etc. And this is what I, again, urge you guys to start with, okay? I urge you guys to start every key meeting with, especially when it comes to key decision making. Now, for example, a lot of us have big teams. Maybe our teams aren't completely, Muslim or etc. It's fine. Just, again, get them to understand that you're aligning this with a deeper purpose. It should be one of your core values of your company anyway. But make sure you start with the niyyah. And if you haven't even established this, guys, you're going to need to establish, how is this business of yours actually serving the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal? How are you going to make it? And I don't care what it is you sell, there's still a way to make sure that what you're doing is going to serve the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. So this is why it's important, like I said, to pause the noise, stop, and ask ourselves, because sure, that client may have some troubles and some difficulty adjusting now, but I'm glad that he's facing those problems here and not in the bloody Akhirah. Does that make sense? I'm flipping glad. Right, sure, struggle, make the shift, make the transition, be lost for a while, but I'd rather be lost in the flipping dunya for the whole of the dunya than be lost for 10 minutes in the bloody Akhirah. Does that make sense? And that's why it's important for us to, guys, make sure, and again, this is why I actually recommend all of us to go study the aspects of what? Islamic, or at least have somebody on your consultancy in your team that has studied and understands the Islamic jurisprudence when it comes to what? When it comes to buying and selling. Because it's going to help you majorly. It's how we prevent ourselves from getting into silly decisions or making silly mistakes, right? So we said step one, of course, is to what? Start with the intentionality. Number two, make sure you audit your time and your calendar frequently. Make it a rule that you never book meetings, you never book anything on top of a what? A window, a slot that is for what? For salah. You want to avoid it as much as possible. Make sure you have Quran, dhikr, built into your week. If your calendar, the way you've designed your calendar, doesn't reflect your values, then that is the very definition of hypocrisy. You're claiming to believe in one thing, but you've literally set your life to live in another completely different way. Okay? Like we said, another thing, micro muhasabah. On a Friday or whatever day your personal muhasabah is, ask yourself the question is, did I live as a slave of Allah or a slave to my company? You know, one of the questions that I always used to ask myself from the beginning is, how good a slave have I been to my Lord? Right? Making sure you're giving thanks, you're shukr, avoiding major sins. These are all metrics, by the way. I can send you guys the track. So, guys, remember that do not attach yourself to results of your company. Results is equal to effort multiplied by leverage. Leverage is, as we all know, barakah. But another part of the equation we don't often mention is it's by the tawfiq of Allah. Wallahi al-Azim, it's by Allah's tawfiq and by Allah's tawfiq alone. And trust me, the days and the weeks where you align with the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal and you feel good, your iman is high. Let it be a bad month financially, let it be a bad month in terms of sales and revenue. Wallahi, you still feel bloody amazing. You still feel amazing. And you know Allah is not going to leave you alone, right? And that's one of the things when clients tell me about stress, etc. One of the questions I always ask them is, how good is your iman right now? Because anxiety is a great sign that right now you're not very close to Allah. Right? That's why you're anxious, because the opposite of anxiousness is calmness, and that calmness and serenity comes with what? When you've connected outcomes to Allah rather than yourself. All right? So results is equal to effort multiplied by leverage multiplied by what? Of course, the tawfiq of Allah. All of that equation comes down to tawfiq of Allah. So if there's zero, meaning anything you multiply by zero equals what, guys? Zero. So always remember the tawfiq of Allah Azza wa Jal is what? Is that big multiplier. And if it's on zero, then no matter how hard you work, in the end, it's going to equate to zero as well. All right? In the end, it's going to what? Equate to bloody zero as well. So don't let a bad sales month, etc. shake your iman. Don't let it ruin your routine. Don't let all of these crazy things. Guys, do not ever do your best and make it a principle in your life that you will never ever sell your deen for this dunya. Make sure it's a value in your life. All right? That you'll never ever sell your deen for this dunya. Okay? Meaning that when the time for salah comes, you drop it. You respect the time that salah. That is a form of selling, by the way, right? That the time for salah has come, but you're still engaging in this thing. That's you selling your deen for the dunya, all right? And you'll find a lot more barakah in your life that way. You'll find that you feel like Allah is with you in your endeavors. And trust me, guys, I'm sure, I want you guys to say yes or no in the chat. Yes or no, like when we are not there, iman-wise, even if we're winning in business, subconsciously we still don't feel good. Who's experienced that? Like, let's say revenue is up, you're still technically winning, but iman is like not where it's supposed to be. It still feels like you're taking the biggest like L right now. It doesn't feel good, right? And in your mind, subconsciously, you're not even able to make use of the wins. You're not even able to fully make use of the wins because you're thinking like, when is the punishment going to come? Like, when is that like negative going to come? Because right now I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So you can't even be at peace. You can't even have that like, calmness. You can't. And this is why it's absolutely important, guys. So right now, I want you guys, inshallah, grab a pen, okay? And write down the top 3 intentions for why you're building what you're building. Right now, everyone. Now, I want you guys to assess, okay, the life you're living right now, does it align with those 3 intentions? Guys, you're not promised later. I just really want you to remind like, you know, this is an ugly topic that people don't like to hear, but it's just the truth. You know, the Prophet ﷺ literally tells you, remember death often, right? You're not promised later, and death doesn't wait for product to market fit or for you to hit that revenue goal. If you can't give Allah enough time a day now, then trust me, you're not going to do it as revenue grows. We've worked, again, I'm making this clear, we've worked with over 800 founders. That lie of when I achieve this, then I'm going to spend more time prioritizing X, Y, Z. Wallahi, it's a lie. It gets worse. It doesn't get better. All right? It's a lie. It's a big bloody lie. Success, guys, can be a test, okay? Not a reward. You know, sometimes I hear clients say, if my business succeeds, you know, that means Allah is pleased with me. It's not necessarily true. Qarun was wealthy, Fir'aun was wealthy, was powerful. That didn't mean they were beloved to Allah. Revenue growth isn't necessarily, and it definitely isn't a sign of barakah if it comes at the result of salah, Quran, and family. And that's why you still don't feel good, as we agreed, when you're achieving these things, but revenue is down, right? So are you using your success to worship Allah more, or has it made you too busy for Allah is the question, okay? And again, this whole, but my intention, Fawaz, my intention. My intention is pure. You know, I really am doing this for the sake of Allah. Guys, if you're so sure that you're doing this for the sake of Allah, by the way, that's a sign of nifaq in itself. Now, I didn't say that. Okay, I'm just letting you know. It's not my words. The sign of one of the signs, and the ulama mentioned that a sign of hypocrisy is that one is sure in his sincerity. If you don't actually stop and ask yourself, and by the way, a sign of sincerity is that you stop and ask yourself, and you're actually afraid that are you a hypocrite? If you imagine it, Umar bin Khattab, and guys, every time I think of this story, it actually gives me like a headache. Like, you know, not like a headache, but like it really like disturbs my mind. Umar bin Khattab, who's one of the 10 who was promised Jannah, who was one of the closest to the Prophet ﷺ after Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, yani, at the end of his life, he's actually scared as to like what his end is going to be, as to whether Allah is going to have mercy on him. This is somebody who was actually like granted like Jannah, like wahi, like revelation, he's going to Jannah. He's one of the 10 promised Jannah, right? And his approach to like, even at the end of his life, he's still scared. And he's asking his son to put his head on the what? On the debt, for maybe Allah might have what? Mercy on him for seeing him in that state. That's him, who was giving guarantees, who was close to the Prophet ﷺ, who lived in the way he did. And then there's us, who are nothing in comparison, but somehow still have this mentality that, no, I'm it's cool because I'm, fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah, right? I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. Guys, don't be so sure on your intention. Islam isn't just about intention alone. It's about the method. You can't claim it's for Allah while using haram means or neglecting your obligations, right? Marketing with lies or skipping prayers or ignoring rights, right, of others. That nullifies the barakah, right? And a question I want you to ask yourself is, and a beautiful fa'idah my Shaykh gave me, because Fawaz, don't judge your sincerity based off of what? Off of your words or what you plan to do. Judge it based off your actions today. If you want to know if you're sincere in terms of when you say, I'm doing this for my family, how are you with your family today? If you want to be sincere when you say, I'm doing this for Allah, how are you with Allah today? Judge it today, guys. Don't judge it when, inshallah, because I think, Allah knows my heart, so I don't need to keep checking my niyyah. Yeah, Allah knows your heart, but you may not. Intention drifts. Egos creep in. Maybe you started doing it for Allah, but soon it becomes for something else. And that happens. And that's why we need to spend time recalibrating. And that's why I advise that you have time to actually stop and recalibrate and make sure, right? We need to ask ourselves, have we been honest? Have we been doing justice by Allah Azza wa Jal's deen? Because guys, let me not deceive you. We can make all the revenue. We can 3 to 10x in 90 days. We can do whatever shebang you want. But on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, there's some deep questions to be asked. And in your grave, I ain't there with you. I keep it back with you guys. Nobody's there with you. And it's a lonely, lonely thing. And this is why we need to make sure that the deen takes precedence before anything we do. If you're a Muslim entrepreneur doing over 100K a month, you cannot scale using the same system that got you to where you are now. You need to upgrade yourself as a founder. This is the exact same thing we've done for all our clients, and they've been able to 3 all the way to 10x in revenue. So if you would like us to do the same thing for you, then click the link in the description down below now.